It's me, Vicky Marie. Good morning. Oh, God, the dog's decided to wander around. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in this crazy world we're living in. Yes, it certainly is crazy. Even Princess Tia thinks it's crazy. So I hope you've had a good weekend. It is Monday, the 15th of June. And the jury are back in the Preston Davey trial of his two dads. You couldn't call them dads, could you? The two people that were his caregivers at the time when he died. Their trial. The jury started deliberating on Thursday, last Thursday. We're now on Monday. No verdict was reached Thursday, though to be fair, they didn't have a lot of time Thursday. Then they had all day Friday to come to a decision, didn't come to a decision. They were sent home. And they'll have had time over the weekend to think about, we don't know what's taking the time. And what I'm going to look at in this video, well, I'm hoping that I'll be able to stay online, until hoping a verdict will come while I am online, but I will stay online as long as I possibly can, to try and sort of get a resolution to this case, even if it means bathroom breaks and this, that and the other. But luckily I've sort of rearranged things today where I can be here till 5:30 Spanish time, which is 4:30 UK time. And I do feel that if they haven't reached a verdict by then, it's not going to be reached today. So I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to bring you the verdict as soon as it comes in. That's what I'm hoping for. In the meantime, while we're waiting, because I'm on the Manchester Evening News sort of live feed, I'm also keeping an eye on Twitter, because there are sometimes you get, information through more quickly on Twitter than you do on anything else. So I'll be keeping an eye on all the different things. But and while we're waiting, I've got a few things I want to tell you about, to do with Preston Davey, about the vigil. I've got a noisy motorbike outside. About the vigil that's coming up tomorrow. On Preston's, what would have been Preston's 4th birthday, if this poor little boy would have been allowed to live the life he should have had. I'll also be telling you about a petition that's going around to investigate social services, because although it's Varley and GF that are the ones on trial here, social services has got a part to play in this. All the people that let this little boy down, he should never have gone to those men. Why did he ever go to those men? Because they didn't really have any experience with babies. And I've got this sinking feeling that he was given to these men for adoption because, like, it's almost a diversity issue, because they were a gay couple. I'm not against gay couples adopting. I think, it's perfectly fine. But the more we hear about this couple, they couldn't look after a goldfish, never mind a child. Why were they ever given this baby or a precious commodity? These millions that would have treated him properly, all of us. You just look at his lovely little face, his little cheeky face and his little curly hair. He's adorable, and most normal people, gay or otherwise, would look at this baby and just want to give him a cuddle. And, he's just got such an adorable little face, and he does look cheeky, doesn't he? He looks like a cheeky one, as little boys are, and then this sort of, whatever happens, whatever the outcome is in this trial, these two men, they treated Preston terribly. even if you take away the allegations of sex abuse, leaving him in the bath for 14 minutes on his own, spinning him round at the park until he virtually went unconscious, taking videos of him pooing in the bath. Just they treated him with the biggest lack of respect, whatever you think of. And they only had him for 4 months. 4 months. This baby was a beautiful, bouncing, healthy, cheeky boy. He didn't sleep much. That was accepted, but that's not exactly a freak thing with babies, is it? He had a reflux, but as soon as he went to these men, he was yes, the dog's got a lot to say about this case. He was vomiting virtually constantly. He was at the hospital 3 times. He had 40 injuries. He had a broken arm. He had injuries to his bladder, and he had bruises to the back of his throat. This in 4 months. 4 months that he was with this vile Jamie Varley. And I'm sorry, whatever the verdict ends up being, he is vile the way he treated this boy, with the total lack of respect. And his defence, Varley's defence seems to be, I'm just an immature prick. I didn't do any of it deliberately. And when I look back now, I can see that maybe I shouldn't have done this and maybe I shouldn't have done that. But, in his late 30s, his defence seems to be, I'm an immature prick. So why was he ever given a baby in the first place? He's also changed his appearance. This was him when it first happened, with the short dark hair, crying in the police station. Oh, I just thought this and I just thought that. Then a year later, look how he's changed his appearance. And then he's accusatory towards the police, contemptuous of the police. What do you mean? What are you asking me questions for? I've got a hair appointment I've got to keep. He's just horrible, vile man, whatever the verdict is. And then his partner, John GF, his defence seems to be, he didn't know anything about it. What happened to little one? That's how he kept referring to Preston. Little one. He knew nothing about it. It seems he's trying to throw Jamie under the bus. But he did know about it because he was sent photos and videos. His DNA was found in Preston's cock. He admitted being there that day when Preston was hanging over the bars with blue lips and dribble coming from his mouth that nobody seems to know where exactly it was. He was there, he was making a roast dinner. He just popped up for a second. He had a look at Preston there hanging over the crib like that. And then he just went back downstairs and carried on making the roast dinner, didn't he? That according to him. So they're both horrible. To me, they're as bad as each other. I mean, Jamie's a little bit worse because he was there at home with Preston more. He used Preston as a stress ball when he got jealous of GF. When GF was working away and things like that, he would send him videos, distressing videos of this beautiful little boy to try for attention, demanding that GF comes home now, come home now. He's just awful. Anyway, so before I'm going to sort of explain to you again what the charges actually are, and I don't think we should be despondent that it's taken the jury quite a while to make this decision. I think they're complex charges, 2 defendants. I think just deciding whether it was murder or manslaughter will be a big thing in itself. And the judges said he will only accept majority verdicts so far. Maybe that the judge eventually will say, okay, I'll accept, a hung jury. Or, he might say, I'll accept a 10-2 verdict. Some people are saying that some of the jurors were discharged, so there's only 10 jurors. I don't know if that's true or not. But anyway, so it may be that if the deliberations go on too long, the judge will decide eventually. Will that set? It won't have to be a unanimous verdict. Personally, I think it should be unanimous. These are, they are serious charges, and I can't believe that they don't all, come to. But they're complex, and there are two defendants. So there's a lot for the jury to discuss. And if you think about it, really, they've only had one full day of deliberation. Thursday, they had a couple of hours. So over the weekend, I'm sure they've all been thinking about it, and obviously they couldn't talk to anyone about it, but have been thinking about it themselves, and now they're back deliberating. So let's hope they come to the right verdict. Anyway, so before I get started, thank you. Thank you so much for caring about Preston. Thank you to everybody who likes my videos, who subscribe to my channel. Not only this case, but all the other cases that we cover. We're very victim-centric. We always centre on the victims. The victims are the people that matter. They're the important people. We care about the cases we cover. Over the weekend, I don't know about you, but I did detach a little bit from true crime because it hurts the soul. True crime, but it's important. Preston's story is not receiving enough attention that it should be receiving. It's not receiving enough. And hopefully, we'll see what the verdict is. But I think there'll be, over the next few days when the verdict comes in, there's going to be a massive amount of media attention, I think. So thank you for those of you who've watched, for those of you who've liked, for those of you who've hyped the videos, shared them. Just people should all be aware of what's happened, because this little boy, he counted, he might have only had 13 months of life, the last 4 months of which were bloody miserable, to be honest, sustaining all those injuries, etc. He might not have had a long life, but he matters, and you know what, maybe it can make a difference in the future. Let's hope that, the more attentive, if the one thing that we can do, by talking about Preston's case, if it even saves one little baby from ending up with the same fate, that's worth it, isn't it? So, but the most important thing is just he deserves to be remembered. He did count, he did matter. We do care about him. We should care about babies and children, not just, they go into what they call the care system. But the care system, it's such a misnomer sometimes, isn't it? It's like, do they really get cared for in the care system? Seems like, no, they don't. But anyway, certainly Preston didn't. So thank you. Special thank you, as always, to my members. Special thank you to those of you who sent Ko-fis or bought merchandise or supported my channel in any other way. Thank you to those of you who sent emails, left nice messages, comments, etc. Thank you. I'm going to take off the banner now. So hello, you lovely lurkers. There's a lot of you out there I know that have been invested in Preston's case. I mean, at the end of the day, how can you look at this little baby and not be invested in what happened to him, not care about what happened to him? How could you look at this little boy and think about hurting him or using him for revenge on your partner or using him in an sex way? How could you? What sort of a person are you to do that? I mean, he's just so happy and smiley, and that's how he was when he went to the house of Jamie and John. This was how he was, and within 4 months, he was dead. And this, of course, I mentioned this in the last video that I did. This is a picture that haunts me all the time. A picture that tells a story. There's them turning up at the hospital with Preston. Preston is clearly deceased, in my opinion, already. Jamie's doing his usual histrionic dramatics, all about him. John GF, he's the cold. He actually gives me the creeps more than the other one. He's neither of them. They'd waited ages before they took this boy to the emergency department. He could have been saved. They thought he'd bounce back like he had before, because this had happened before. And he even said that, didn't he? Jamie Varley, Jurassic Park T-shirt, pajamas in his late 30s. He even said, he thought he would just bounce back like he had before. He left him in the bath, and then he went and had a shower, like you do. You leave a 13-month-old baby in a bath, and he was in his bath seat, and he came back and he was submerged in the water. And but of course he had no signs of drowning, did he? No water in his lungs, his hair wasn't wet. It's a total load of cojones, the story that they came out with. So whatever, if you don't believe all the bad things about these men, one thing we do know for certain is he was left lying on the bed. He couldn't breathe properly. And he took a video of it instead of taking him to the hospital. Now, the jury have seen that video. So I do feel that the right verdict is going to come. I feel like they're probably haggling about maybe some of the intricacies of it. But I can't see how, when they've actually seen the videos, actually seen the videos, we've heard about them, and it's enough to make us think that they are probably guilty. So imagine if you'd actually seen the video of Preston lying on the bed, struggling for breath, and these twonks just left him there because they were too scared. They left him there because they were too scared of going to the hospital, because the hospital might find out some things. Anyway. So, hello, lovely lurkers, you lovely lurkers that have cared about Preston. Thank you. Thank you so much. Hello to Replay Crew, who've also cared about him and followed this case. Thank you. So, there's a few of you already in the chat. Let's have a look who's in the chat. Hi, David. Hi, Lily. Hi, Ange. Hi, Jacqueline. Hi, Kelly. Thank you so much, all of you, for being here. Hi, Daniel. Katie. Yes, if I do have to have a break, it will only be 9 seconds. I'll try my best. You can be sure that as soon as I go for a bathroom break or to get a drink or something, that's probably when the verdict will come in. Yep, I agree with you, Jacqueline. They probably only adopted Preston for one reason. They are half-wits, David. Whatever else happens in this case, whatever the verdicts are, they are half-wits. Hi, Natalie. Yeah, I think you're possibly right. Because it's Preston's birthday tomorrow, and there's going to be a vigil. So it sort of would be also nice, if the verdicts came, as long as they're the right verdicts, of course, came on Preston's birthday. Yeah, they may hold off on it because they'll be aware of that, maybe. Ignorance is no defense. Exactly. As far as, John GF, he did know. He knew all of it. He had the videos. He's trying to. Also, of course, what we have to remember is their stories have changed. So if you're telling the truth, your story doesn't ever change, does it? But, Jamie Varley particularly, his explanation of how Preston ended up with a broken arm. So in 4 months, I know I keep going on about it, 4 months, 40 injuries. That's 10 injuries a week. A month. And babies do get injuries. They do get bumps on the head and things like that. And they keep calling him a toddler, but he wasn't a toddler. He was only just crawling. And they said, oh, he kept banging into the door where they had these toys for him to play with. Well, take the bloody toys away then if he kept banging his head. First time my baby was crawling towards a door to get some toys I'd stuck there and banged his head, that'd be the end of them toys being on there. It's like fidget spinners, they called them, didn't they, or something? And then how does he explain taking him to the park and spinning him so fast that in the end he sort of practically went unconscious? He's a sadistic, horrible man, Jamie Varley, whichever way you look at it. Yeah, the working husband, so he's the one that everyone's not sure about, but his DNA was in the child's cot, his SEMEN. What was that about? So the prosecution's assertion is that they're both as bad as each other, of course. Yeah. Okay, so where are we going to start? I think what I'll just do, just remind you of the charges, trigger warning. So I'm just going to read the top of I'm following the Manchester Evening News feed. Sorry, I've just got, somebody just sent me a message. I've just got to check that. Okay, so the jury in the trial of two adoptive dads accused of crimes following the death of baby Preston Davey will resume considering their verdicts today, June the 15th. So we've got Jamie Varley. Let's have a look at him. Sadly, we do have to look at him. Once the verdict's through, if they're guilty verdicts, they'll be going in the hellhole, and we won't have to look at them again. But we have to look at them at the moment because this is the case and it's not finished yet. So this is Jamie. Now, what's he? Jamie Varley. So he's 37 years old. So this happened 2 years ago. So he would have been 35. And his partner, John G.F., he's younger. He's 32 now. He was only 30 when this all happened. Let's put his picture up. And this, of course, all happened in Blackpool. There's the Blackpool Tower there behind John G.F. This is the artist's impression of them when this trial started. Doesn't look anything like them. They've both changed their appearance. So, Jamie Varley, we've seen he's grown his hair long. They've got him with dark hair there. But in that other photo we've looked at, it looks sort of blonde streaks, more blonde. But he's, and he's got facial hair. He has changed his appearance radically, really. And John looks different as well. If this is a true representation of John G.F., he's now got facial hair as well. And he's really receding. Whereas, people do lose their hair at 30 sometimes. So this was photos from before. They do look sort of radically different. I mean, they'll be terrified of anybody knowing who they are. So the other thing we mustn't forget is if John, the thing that it makes me think that John G.F. is definitely not telling the truth, apart from his SEMEN in Preston's cot, He went back with Jamie. You know, they didn't see each other for 2 weeks after it happened. They both went to live with their respective parents. But then they were back together, living together, resumed their relationship. You know, so if he really thought that Jamie had misled him and that he'd been wrong to put his trust in Jamie, why did he go back with him? So what his claim was during the trial is that some of those videos, etc., he only saw them at the police station when the police were telling him about it. Sorry. He only saw them then, didn't know about it before. So he did throw Jamie a bit under the bus when he was giving his evidence, because he said he thought he was probably wrong to have placed his trust in Jamie, didn't he? Did he really mean it? I don't know. So they both radically changed their appearance. They're probably terrified when they were out and about, worrying, you know, anybody would recognise them or whatever. But you know, I never heard about this case at the time, and I think that's a good thing, really, because, you know, to protect the integrity of you know, cases, and like when they come to court, it's better that we don't know anything before, really, because court is the time when everything should come out. And we don't want these twonks, if they do get found guilty, we don't want them turning around and saying, oh, they didn't get fair trial because people knew about them. I'd never heard of this case before it came to trial, to be honest. So, you know, they won't be able to say that the case was tainted for that reason. So I'm sure they'll have a go, even if they're found guilty. I'm sure they'll have a go at trying to say it was an unfair trial or whatever. So they're charged with a string of offences against 13-month-old Preston, who they were in the process of adopting, by the name of Elijah, while he was in the care of the couple, and he died after being taken to Blackpool Victoria Hospital at 7:15 p.m. But don't forget, I think they could have saved this boy, because he started being ill, I think it was around about 5 or something, 5 p.m., 2 hours before they took him to the hospital. So this happened on July the 27th, 2023, and the two men are currently on trial at Preston Crown Court, charged with this. So Preston Crown Court, we've seen a few cases. Jay Slater, I think his inquest was held there. Nicola Bully, her inquest was held there. So we've been to Preston with this channel before. Mr. Varley is accused of, so there's several, you know, there's multiple charges. Varley is accused of murder, sexual assault of a child under 13. I shouldn't have said that out loud. YouTube will be on me again. Inflicting grievous bodily harm, 5 counts of child cruelty, and further counts of making, taking, and distributing indecent images. So that there's a lot of charges there and the jury have got to go through each one. Now, it doesn't mention men. I thought he was charged with manslaughter as well, because I think the jury have to decide. If they decide Varley caused Preston's death, what they'll have to decide is, was it red rum or was it manslaughter? I mean, they are vastly different charges with vastly different sentences. Then they've got to decide the sex assault of a child under 13. Then the grievous bodily harm, 5 counts of child cruelty, and further counts of making, taking, and distributing indecent images. So that's a lot, you know, they've got to go through each of those and get a verdict for each one. So I don't think it's a surprise it's taken so long. Whereas GF, he's not accused of red rum, but he's accused of causing or allowing the death of a child. So that's quite complex. So that's more like, even though he knew that Preston was in danger from Varley, he allowed it to continue. It's that sort of thing, isn't it? 2 counts of child cruelty and sex assault of a child under 13. So there's a lot of charges for both men, but they're quite different, aren't they? So Val is accused of different charges than GF. So both men of Staining Avenue, Blackpool, deny all charges brought against them. The judge finished summing up the case on Thursday, June the 11th, and the jury have been deliberating since then. Of course, with the gap over the weekend, so Saturday and Sunday, there were no deliberations, but you can bet that the jury will have been thinking about, where to go after that. So this morning, the jury was set to resume their deliberations, and I presume they'll deliberate all day today, won't they? Unless they come to a verdict at some point. But as someone was saying earlier, it's Preston's birthday tomorrow, or it would have been it's still his birthday, it's his heavenly birthday. It would have been 4. Now he would be a toddler. Now he would be a toddler. He'd be walking, he'd be talking, um, being his little cheeky self. And he should have, he shouldn't be. The celebration of Preston's 4th birthday should not be a candlelit vigil. It should be a party with balloons and cake and all the things that 4-year-olds. I remember when it was his, around that birthday, we had like a lot of games. We did egg and spoon race and pin the tail on the donkey and bobbing for apples. And all his friends said it was, even when they were adults, they thought it was the best party they'd ever been to. Kids party, because when they get to 4, they start to enjoy their birthday then, to know it's their birthday. I mean, at the end of the day, babies don't know it's their birthday, do they? The birthday party for a 1-year-old is more for the parents than the baby, because the baby hasn't got a clue really what's going on. But by the time they get to 4, that's the party Preston should have been having. Not a candlelit vigil in his memory. He should have been having a proper party with maybe, egg and spoon race or pin the tail on the donkey and all the, the old traditional. I'm old, so I like all those traditional things. And I'll tell you what, the kids loved it. They love it as long as they can make a mess, play with balloons or whatever, or do whatever, and bobbing for apples. They loved that because they loved it. They just love getting dirty as well. Kids, don't they? They do. They love it. You can't keep them all pristine sat there while they're having a party. But if Preston was really having his 4th birthday, he would be enjoying it with his friends from the nursery or wherever, or school. Here in Spain, they start school at 3. So my son was at school, so he had all his classmates here and that. Yeah, that's what Preston should be doing tomorrow. Having a party with his friends, bless him. But instead, no, it's heavenly birthday. It's candlelit vigil, which is good. I'm glad he's having a candlelit vigil. I'm glad somebody cares about him. Somebody's organised this vigil. We care about him. I'm glad he's having all that. But do you know what? He should have been having his proper birthday. Should have been having his proper birthday with his mates. That's what he should have been having. But thanks to the twonks, his adoptive dads, he's not. So there you go. Anyway. Just hope. So yeah, maybe that hi Louise. It may be that the what's the word I'm trying to say here? It may be that his verdict comes today, the verdicts come today, or it may be that they come tomorrow on his birthday. In a way, it would be fitting for the verdicts, as long as they're guilty verdicts, come tomorrow, I suppose. But anyway, but for us, and not only, you know what, there's a lot to come out about this case about Preston's biological mum, and she wanted Preston. I'm not sure yet conclusively of the reasons why, you know, there's lots of rumours flying around, but it'll all come out. It'll all come out, the true story of Preston's pet biologics, and we'll get that after the verdicts, I'm sure. But imagine what she's going through. So imagine social services say to you, you can't look after this baby because something in your past or whatever. We're taking this baby off you. We're going to give it to a responsible family. And they give the baby to these twats. Your baby. It's bad enough. He's not our baby, and we feel like that. He was given to two men who couldn't even look after a goldfish, never mind a child, a baby. And then he was just, within 4 months, he was dead. So that leads me to what I want to say to you. There's a petition going around. I'm going to put it in the chat now, but I'll try and remember to put it in the description link. I have made a post about it. So this is a petition to investigate social services over the death of Preston, because although it's these two twonks that are responsible for it, social services had a lot of red flags. You know, there were loads of red flags. 40 injuries and 3 hospital admissions over 4 months might have been, a flag, mightn't they? But no, social services thought they were doing a great job, apparently. So, going around, which I know a couple of you have signed already. Thank you so much for that. I've signed it. Please sign the petition to investigate social services. Hi, Julie. How are you? Your T-shirt should arrive today. When it arrives, you have to get your husband to model it for us. You don't have to show his face, but a nice picture of him modeling it would be good to show. But anyway, it's supposed to arrive today, so I presume it will, hopefully. Amazon's normally quite good, but not always, of course. Okay, so where am I now? Oh, so yeah, the petition. Now I've got the petition up here. Let's see if I can share it. And then I am just going to check Twitter in a minute just to make sure there's nothing come up on the Manchester Evening News website yet. But yeah, it's only got 1,612 signatures. Come on, it needs more. Please sign it. Social services have got to be held accountable for this. They've got to be. Let's see if I can I'm just looking on Twitter. No. Let's have a look. Nothing, might show his Twitter thing in a moment. So, he says all Preston's family are now sitting outside with us waiting for the decision. Such lovely people, every one of them. I just met Preston's mum. Oh my God. Heartbreaking. So apparently ITV are going to cover the vigil. We're going to have a look at that again in a minute. Anyway, let's have a look at this. So 58 people have signed today. Come on, we need more signatures. Investigate social services over Preston Davey's death. Get his little face. He's just so, he does look cheeky, looks, he's just beautiful, he's smiley. This was Preston before these monsters got their hands on him. I am writing this petition with a heavy heart. The recent tragic death of baby Preston Davey has left many of us in the community devastated and questioning the systems in place meant to protect our most vulnerable children. Babies and children deserve to be in safe and nurturing environments. Yet it seems that the problems failed in this instance, leading to a heartbreaking and preventable tragedy. Preston's death raises serious concerns about the adequacy of checks on prospective adoptive parents and the decisions made by social services. Did social services take the decision to give this baby thank you, Kate, thank you for signing. Did social services take this decision because they were same-sex partners? You know, did it fit a quota? This terrifies me, you know, because deciding who gets to adopt or not should not matter about political correctness. You know, I don't care if it's a gay couple, men, women, whatever. I don't care, or a single parent adopting. It's the person needs to be, or people need to be investigated properly. And I just think, did they not look into it deeply enough? Because these men had good careers. I mean, you know, Jamie Varley, he's a professional, he's head of year at a private school. John GF had a good job as a salesperson. He's working there in Salford Keys. He's the head of the North for some bank or whatever. He's dealing with multi-million-pound projects. So we're blinded by that, you know, because on the surface, these men look like, you know, a respectable professional couple who could offer Preston a good home. But was it not looked? Did they not look into their sort of personalities? I still think they should look at people's social media and things like that. People should, if somebody wants to adopt a baby, that baby is so vulnerable. I honestly think they should hand over everything, because if you had nothing to hide, listen, we've all got things on our phone. I'm sure that we wouldn't want, you know, broadcast across the world. But, you know, I'm not talking about illegal things. I'm talking about even, you know, we've all sent maybe messages that afterwards we thought, oh, shouldn't really have sent that. Drunken texts maybe and stuff like that. I don't know, but you would still be open with it. There's nothing on my phone. If somebody took my phone, I might sort of think, ooh, you know, but if the police took my phone, the worst thing they'd find on my phone is things about true crime, you know, because I cover true crime. So they're going to they'll probably look at the, oh God, look at her search history. It's all about serial killers and God knows what. And they would find maybe things like that, but they wouldn't find anything untoward on my phone that, you know, they would think, oh, it wasn't what anybody might have on their phone. But let's not forget Jamie Varley. He had a secret cache on his phone of his sex compartment on his phone that was password protected. And the defense actually used that to try and make people feel better about him by saying, oh, the photos of Preston weren't in his sex folder on his phone. Oh, but who has an SEX folder on their phone locked? Who? I mean, do you? Seriously, who has, Is there any of you, honestly, I'm asking a serious question, maybe there is, but who has a secret folder, password protected folder on their phone entitled SEX? What? I don't think that's unusual. And what was in that folder? What sort of photos? Okay, there weren't any photos of Preston, but what was in it then? What? I just don't. Was it things he was hiding from John GF? Did they have an open relationship? Were they? Was there any sort of S&M photos in there? What? Why would you even have that? Very strange, I think. I'm not saying people wouldn't have, you know, racy photos on their phone, but to be honest, I think you're mad if you let anyone take any, revealing photos of you, with your knowledge. These days, God, they end up round the internet, don't they? Especially when people break up. But yes, some people like to take photos. I think one thing we can say about Jamie is he likes to take photos and videos. Just funny that he's got it on a special password protected lockdown thing. I don't know. Was he trying to hide it from John? I don't know. So, what do you think about that? Maybe all of you, maybe it's just me who hasn't got one. Maybe everybody else has got an SEX folder on their phone. I don't know. And we don't know, of course, what's in it. We'll find out, because I tell you, once this verdict comes through and this case is over, I think we're going to find out a lot of things. I mean, they were at great pains, weren't they, to say, they've got no criminal record, not even a parking ticket. Not even a parking ticket. They were at great pains to say that, weren't they? Well, I'll tell you what, I'm older than them, so I've had a longer life, but I have had parking tickets, and I have had speeding fines, and I have been fined for not wearing my seatbelt, over, as I say, I've been driving for 40 odd years. So I do have them things, but you know what? I never murdered a baby. They're saying that, oh, no, we've got no criminal not even a parking ticket, as if that, well, be better they had a parking ticket than be charged with what they've been being charged with. I would say that most people have got some sort of driving fine or whatever, as I say, either speeding, not wearing a seatbelt, parking in the wrong place, maybe. There's lots of things, minor things you could get a ticket for. But no, they've got none of those sort of charges. But here they are being charged with what they're being charged with. What's preferable? I'll take my speeding tickets, thank you. I haven't had a speeding ticket for ages, actually. But, when I was younger, I was a bit more reckless when I was driving. Like I would perhaps, sometimes you just forget what the limit is. I was when seatbelts first came in, because I'm old enough to remember that. When we didn't have to wear seatbelts. And then Jimmy Savile told us all to wear a seatbelt. So, of course, we all listened to Jimmy Savile. Clunk, click every trip. That was all the adverts, wasn't it, that were on at the time, for anyone who's as old as me and remembers. I was very resistant to wearing a seatbelt because I still don't like wearing one, but I do see that it saves lives. So I do always wear one now. But I've had a few tickets for that, a few fines for that, maybe 3, not wearing a seatbelt. Just, you think, oh, just drive. Even though Jimmy Savile told us that even if you were around the corner, you should still wear your seatbelt. I have had tickets for that. So yeah, but I never murdered a baby. So, I'll take my tickets that I've had, thank you, speeding and not wearing a seatbelt. I'll take that, thank you, rather than, the way they're all prissy, Mr. Cleaner, we've not even had a speeding ticket, a parking ticket. Well, I bet you would have had a parking ticket than get charged with this crap that you're getting charged with. God. Yeah, no one has a past until they're caught. That's for true. That's true. That's for sure. You know, most of us probably haven't got proper criminal histories. Oh, thank you, Julie. Hope your t-shirt fits, or your husband's t-shirt fits okay. And as I say, try and send us at some point. As I say, don't have to show his face, I know that, but maybe in modelling it. Thank you. Yeah, praying for a positive outcome. We're praying for the right verdict that the family are going to be happy with. So going back to whatever I was, here I go, I'm waffling, aren't I? You know what, I like a waffle. I was reading, wasn't I, the petition. So the recent tragic death of baby Preston has left many of us in the community devastated and questioning the systems in place meant to protect our most vulnerable children. Babies and children deserve to be in safe and nurturing environments, yet it seems that the procedures failed in this instance, leading to a heartbreaking and preventable tragedy. And I think that's true. This was preventable. This didn't have to happen. This is not an accident. It's not an accident. So Preston's death raises serious concerns about the adequacy of checks on prospective adoptive parents and the decisions made by social services. Certainly does. Is it good quality, Julie? Oh, good. I'm glad, because I haven't actually, I need to order a sample or something to get an idea. But anyway, thank you. So, yeah, I hope they are going to have an inquiry about this. How were they allowed to have Preston? Just don't know, because they didn't. They both said, oh, we've got no experience with babies. Well, so how were they allowed to have a baby then, to adopt a baby? How was that even allowed if they said themselves during this trial, they have no experience with babies. So why were they allowed to have a baby, adopt a baby? It's crucial that we take immediate action to ensure that social services are thoroughly investigating potential adoptive homes and that no detail is overlooked when it comes to the safety of children. According to a report by, it says, reputable source, there have been, and then it says specific number, I don't know why that's in brackets, incidents in the past where children were placed in homes that later proved to be unsafe. You just think, I'm sort of put in mind of, Arthur, that little boy. I mean, he was, I've got to do a video about Arthur. His mum was put in prison for murder. She murdered her partner. And so he was sent to his dad. To be fair, it was his biological parent. But what checks were made there? And he and his new partner, so Arthur's stepmom, they neglected Arthur, and to the point of death, he died. So he's another one that was placed. What checks were done before Arthur was put with people even though I know it's his biological father. And I think the first instinct of social services is to try and put the child with the biological parents. But then why wasn't Preston allowed to be with his mum then? As I say, we'll probably find it. I don't know if the rumours are true that Preston's mum, when she was a teenager, she committed some terrible things. But it was a long time ago, so I don't know what the checks and balances are, or we don't know. I don't even know if that story's true yet, but it will come out. So this isn't just about Preston. It's about all the children who are at risk if we do not hold the responsible parties accountable. Throughout the UK, the responsibility of social services is not just a policy requirement, it is a moral obligation to safeguard children's futures. Statistics indicate that through thorough background checks and continuous observation of adoptive families can significantly decrease risks. We demand an immediate independent investigation into the social services involved in Preston's case. This investigation should not only examine their procedures, but also propose necessary reforms to ensure that this tragedy is not repeated. We urge government officials and the relevant authorities to prioritise the enforcement of stricter guidelines for evaluating the suitability of adoptive parents. It's vital that all social services professionals are equipped with the necessary resources and training to make decisions that truly reflect the best interests of children. Please sign this petition to help ensure that no more innocent lives like Preston's are put in danger due to lapses in our social service system. So as I say, whatever the final verdicts are, I think we can, assume Preston would not have died if he wouldn't have been given to these men. He died because of neglect. Even whether you accept the sex things and all that or not, we saw the videos. He was left in a bath on his own for 14 minutes. He was distressed and crying. And that twonk, Varley, didn't even go and help him. He was left suspended on the cop bars with blue lips and dribble coming out of his mouth. And neither Varley nor GF laid him down in a more comfortable position. He was taken to the park and spun so fast that his eyes went back in his head and he went unconscious. He was twisted so badly one way or another, his arm was broken. He had bruises to the back of his throat. He had injuries to his bladder. He had linear bruises compatible with slaps on his legs. Now you've got to slap someone pretty hard to leave a bruise. He had a bite mark on his bottom. And all in all, he had 40 injuries. So whether you believe in the PDF version of it, were they paedophiles or not, I don't know. Even without that, they were negligent. They were cruel to Preston. And they ignored him as he was breathing his last. Lying on the bed, they were texting about kayaks, how they were going to sell their kayak. Preston was breathing his last gasps. Now, the jury have seen that video, so I can't believe that the jury aren't going to find him guilty of those sort of charges. I think the problem will be whether it's murder or manslaughter as far as Val is concerned. And I think there will be some discussion about how much GF knew. You know, even though don't forget his DNA was found in the cot, so that's a damning piece of evidence against him. And the other thing, I think, the jury will be taken into consideration, because although the defence brought in their own forensic scientists, didn't they, to say, his injuries could have been from something else, but even their own witness, their own forensics expert, even he said it could be from sex abuse. It's just that he's saying there were other alternatives as well. Whereas the forensic experts for the prosecution said no, it couldn't have been from like the medical staff intubing him and things like that. They were insistent and certain that Preston's injuries to the back of his throat, etc., could not have been caused by trying to save his life. But the forensic pathologist expert for the defence, he didn't dispute that they could have been injuries from sex abuse, etc., but he just added as a caveat that in his opinion, the medical intervention was another possibility. Now the jury have heard all that, and thank you, Lily. Thank you so much, Lily. Very kind. Thank you for the super sticker. We have to remember those things. The forensic experts for the prosecution, they were insistent, weren't they, that Preston was already dead. We could see from that photo, to me, as clear as day, in this photo, in this CCTV footage, that boy is dead. He was, the only reason they brought him to hospital, they said he was floppy. He wasn't floppy, he was dead. He'd been floppy for an hour before that, and they probably could have saved him if they would have brought him in time. But Varley was too keen to try and get the vomit out of his mouth or whatever else he'd put in his mouth. Squeezing him like a tube of toothpaste. Remember that? Performing CCTV on him by squeezing his abdomen. He was trying to make him sick. I'm 100% convinced. That man, he was trying to make Preston sick because he was trying to get out of his stomach whatever he'd put in there. So supposedly he's doing CPR on Preston on his stomach as if it's squeezing it like it's a tube of toothpaste. That's what he said. I'm not saying that. He said that himself with his own words. Everybody knows. You don't have to be a medical expert to know that you don't perform CPR on someone's stomach. So then I think by the time GF got home, I think Preston was already dead. GF was very adamant that he walked in and Preston was sitting up. Do you remember that? He said he got into the house and Preston was sitting up. He wasn't sitting up. I think that's more cojones and lies. And this is why I think GF is just as guilty, because he supported Jamie in all his lies. These pair, they're like, what's the word? They're like this sort of evil partnership. They've got to stick up for each other because they're both in it together, in my opinion. They're both in it together. They're like this sort of couple from hell, Exactly, Katie. Who out of all, there's a lot of us probably that have had children here watching this. When did you ever leave your baby in the bath unattended, even for 1 minute, never mind for 12 minutes, or to go and have a shower? I've said this before, what I would do with my son when he was a baby. And if you did, sometimes you have to go and have a shower, but so you put him in the car seat or I don't know, whatever, and you take him into the bathroom with you and you have your shower where you can see them literally sat there playing with their little toys or whatever, and you're in the shower, you never take your eyes off them. You don't, and you certainly won't put them in the bath. So we're talking about somebody who's saying not only he went and had a shower and left him in his cot, say, or in his playpen or whatever, he left him in the bath. I mean, the more you think about it, the more ludicrous, ridiculous it is. And even if it's true, even if he wasn't capable of looking after a baby, that is not rocket science to know. You don't put a baby in a bath and then go and have a shower. If you're not going to take them actually in the bathroom with you while you have the shower, as I say, in a car seat or something, literally in front of you where you don't take your eyes off them, while you can have a shower and look out at the baby there in the bathroom, in his chair or whatever. But you certainly don't go off and leave him in a bath while you go. I was only putting conditioner on my hair, and so I thought it'd be okay. And then when I went back in, he'd slipped out of his bath seat and his face was submerged in the water. But of course, he had no water in his lungs. His hair wasn't wet. The bathroom, the prosecution made a big, thing of that. The bathroom wasn't disturbed as if a bath had just taken place. It's just obvious lies that he was telling. So whatever the verdict ends up being, though, let's presume he was telling the truth. Well, how was he ever allowed to look after a baby if his idea of being a parent is putting your child in the bath while you go off and condition your hair? In another room. Maybe the bath and the shower in the same room and you could watch it. I mean, but still, you wouldn't put your child in a bath full of water and then go off and have a shower, even if you were in the same bathroom. Because, it's before you could get out of the shower to save him, he could easily drown. So all this now I'm sort of holding forth about. Don't forget the jury that have seen this as well. Surely. So, the jury, they're people like us who can see through lies. Surely no one's going to be sat on that jury thinking, oh, well, maybe he did just leave him in the bath for 14 minutes. Just, what did he say? So that he could be independent or self-soothing. And they used to leave him all the time because they wanted him to be self-soothing. What these men wanted when they adopted Preston, worst case scenario, they wanted a baby to abuse, maybe. Best case scenario, they wanted like a fashion accessory because a lot of gay couples now adopt babies. They wanted to do what all the other gay couples were doing. But they didn't adopt this baby to give this baby a better life because they treated him just like, he could have been a cuddly toy, couldn't he? Could have been a Louis Vuitton handbag or something, or a Gucci something. He was just an accessory to be paraded. Oh, look what we've got. Look what we've got, this baby. And a beautiful baby at that. I mean, Preston would be, you know, you'd love to show his photos off to people and that, because he's gorgeous. But also, you know, babies are gorgeous, but you know what? They take a lot of looking after. Most normal people know that. And Jamie Varley, he had a lot of nieces and nephews, you know, and as I've said before, if I was his sister and he'd been babysitting my children when they were babies, I'd be thinking back about all that as well. You know, he wasn't responsible enough to look after babies, but he did used to babysit his nieces and nephews. That's chilling, isn't it? To think that you know, he says he hadn't had any experience with babies, but he'd been around children all his life because he had quite a big family, didn't he? You know, so none of it makes sense, does it? None of it adds up. Now, I wonder if Jamie Varley's mum and John G.S. mum and dad, are they there at the courtroom? You know, let's not forget that Jamie Varley, his mum, just a few hours before this poor baby died, Jamie Varley's mum was bouncing him on her knee singing Clap Handy's Daddy Comes with some cakeys and some buns, all for Elijah, I suppose. So she was singing that. There was a video of that shown to the jury. Preston was engaged with his grandma. You know, the Dr. Gifford, who said that on some of the videos, Preston looked terrified. He was looking at Jamie Varley with what Dr. Gifford described as frozen watchfulness. Terrified. But when he was on his G-Ma's knee, when she was bouncing up him singing that song, we haven't seen the videos, but the jury will have seen them, of course. Dr. Gifford said, no, that was normal, you know. He had that normal expression, you know, like, you know what babies are like. You get them on your knee and you're playing with them, singing to them, and their eyes open like that, and they're like smiling and looking you in the eye, and you look at them in the eye. That's what they were doing, how Preston was with his G-Ma, but not how he was on the videos of Jamie. He was looking at him with what Dr. Gifford described as frozen watchfulness. Terrified, because Jamie was too much. He was twisting him too much on the Let's Twist Again video. He spun him on the part in the park till, you know, he was so dizzy, and then he videoed opening his eye, didn't he? I mean, what are you, a weirdo, man? Just complete weirdo to do that to a baby. Awful, 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 awful. You know, even if you take the sex stuff out of the equation, apparently there were lots of things that he did. He was pushing the pushchair over rough ground and thinking it was funny. He thought it was all funny. He thought Preston's distress was funny. And what he said when he spoke in his defence, of course, was, he said, oh, when I look at it now, I can see that maybe it was a bit of an error of judgment. No shit, Sherlock. So the thing is, the things that he can't deny are the photos and videos, because they're there for everybody to see. So he cannot dispute that, can he? But the other things, like what people have said, you know, that he'd originally said that Preston had broken his arm when he was taking him out of the car. You know, he told various conflicting stories. So we have things, Jamie Varley, no, they're lying, or they've remembered it wrong. So far, he said that the doctor that with the thing about the fractured arm, he was lying about, Jamie didn't ever tell him that it happened when he was taking him out of the car. He said the other medical staff were lying, didn't he? That he said that he'd given an explanation for Preston's broken arm. He said, "No, I did. I never said that. I never said that." But he did say it. Of course, he said it. But him and GF, they've got together and come up with a story like the foster mum. I think Sandra, her name is. So that's probably the only place that Preston was taken off his parents, his biological mum anyway, just after he was born. So he never knew family life, apparently. Then he was put with his foster parent. Now he did, thank God, he had some nice life there with the foster parents, because it was a family. But, Jamie Varley and John GF, they came out with this story of the reason why they took all the photos of Preston playing with himself. Babies will do that, of course. It was from the foster mum. She said he should be allowed free willy time. We thought it was hilarious because that's John's favourite film, Free Willy. And then the foster mum has denied that, absolutely. And she said she would never do that because she's very conscious about safeguarding and things. Don't forget, you're always, there's her and her husband looking after Preston as a baby. She insisted that, you've got to decide who you believe. And to me, do you believe psycho Jamie Varley or do you believe the foster mum who seemed to, treat Preston well? Or do you believe psycho Jamie Varley, immature little shit? Or chilling John GF? They've got together to try and cast shade on the foster mother. Now, we don't know. So it's their word against hers. She says she never said it. They say they've got together and said, yes, she did say it. Who do you believe? Well, I know who I believe. If I had to make a decision, I would definitely believe the foster mum before I believe these two twonks. Of course I would. Because he's told lies with other things, hasn't he? Remember, Preston's just a clumsy baby. Just typical clumsy baby. That's why he had clusters of bruises on his foreheads. Clusters of bruises, not just one bruise where he's banged his head. Babies do bang their heads. Cluster of bruises. Linear slap marks. Bite on his bottom. Rectal injuries. Bladder injuries. Even, again, the forensic expert for the defence, even he admitted that could have been caused by sex, like from abuse. You've got to take the whole case as a whole. At the end of the day, nobody was there apart from Jamie and John GF and Preston. So, there's no video. Well, there's the video of Preston up against the cot bars with blue lips and dribble coming out of his mouth. But that in itself does not prove abuse, does it? Even though that's what the prosecution is saying, that those photos were taken as like a memento, like a trophy type thing. Now, we can't know that for certain because we weren't there. But you have to, the balance of probabilities, any piece of circumstantial evidence there is against these men in itself is not enough to convict them. Same when we covered the Erin Patterson trial. That was a lot of circumstantial evidence. That her prosecution, they called over 50 witnesses. And there was, so it's not each thing itself as it stands alone. You put it all together. There was one video that was a bit inappropriate, maybe. One photo, one video. But when there's as many as there were in this case, who? You tell me. So, who, apart from who has a secret cache of sex photos on their phone, password protected, who gets in the bath with their baby, and then when their baby poos in the bath, instead of getting out and sorting it out and, holds up the baby's legs to get a better view and takes a video of it? Who does that? Nobody. Nobody does that except some weirdo. It's just ridiculous. So don't forget, the jury have seen that. Who takes their baby, pushes them so high on a swing? Preston, he was a baby. He's treating him like he's a 4-year-old. Who takes their baby to the park and spins them so fast? That you can't, that poor Preston sort of almost lost consciousness. Who does that? But that's enough. So this is what I mean. So these are not just one. Who leaves their baby in a bath for 14 minutes? That was filmed. Who shouts boo when their baby's trying to fall asleep and then moans that they never sleep enough? Who goes and has a shower and leaves their baby alone in the bath while they go and have a shower and put some conditioner on? You can't, there's too many things. It's not just one thing. So many takes of obsessed with Preston's genitalia. Photos of Preston, first of all in a towel, then lifting the towel out of the way to show Preston's genitalia, and then saying, Preston moved the towel himself. And then saying, I took those videos so we could have a laugh about him when he was 18. Because, me and my sister have got pictures and videos like that. We still laugh about them today. Come on. I mean, you put all those little bits together. I've probably missed some bits. Because there's been a lot of evidence, they gave a lot of evidence. There's a lot of photos, a lot of videos. And who, the most important thing as well is, who leaves a baby lying on the bed, gasping for breath, struggling for breath, and instead of taking them immediately to the hospital or at least phoning for some advice, just videos it and then has a conversation with their partner about a kayak that they're going to sell? Who does that? Hey, Sean. I feel like I've probably missed out some terrible things they did to him. They didn't care about him, did they? They even admitted they wanted him to wake up in the morning and self-soothe while they got their coffee. And, they should never, ever have been given that baby. They should have got a Cabbage Patch doll instead. They were desperate for, one that doesn't cry, doesn't pee and poo and all those things. That's what they would have been better off with. How were they allowed it anyway? Never mind. So still, let me just check for news. I don't think there's still no news still. Let's have a look on X or Twitter. I'm going to show you this account of this guy that I've been following. Now, one good thing, I suppose, maybe that it's going to bring up is it's going to bring attention to children, that are placed in the care system, and just sort of forgotten or falling down. Tomorrow, as I say, will be Preston's 4th birthday, and there's going to be the vigil for him. Oh, I've lost my comments. Where's my comments gone? Oh, sorry, I missed that. Thank you, Angie. I missed that one. Thank you so much for the super chat. Thank you very much. You're all very kind because, you know, it just shows how this case has affected people, doesn't it? Just shows. Sorry, Angie, I missed that earlier. Thank you. So we're going to have a look at the vigil. So tomorrow is Preston's, or would have been, it's still Preston's 4th birthday, all the same. But sadly, it's a heavenly birthday. So instead of, you know, having a party with his friends, it'd be, you know, when, as I was saying earlier, by the time they're 4, they're enjoying their birthdays. You know, first couple of birthdays, they don't really know what's going on, do they? But by the time they get to 4, they've got friends in the nursery or at school, and, you know, they do know what's going on, don't they? And Preston should have been enjoying that tomorrow. That's what should have been happening for Preston tomorrow. Should have been, yeah, his birthday party, cake, candles. These are just things that we take for granted. I mean, as you get older, like me, birthdays become less important. You can't fit the candle, you know, for kids. You know, they love their birthdays, don't they? It's like a big event for them. And that's what Preston has been denied. Not only his birthday tomorrow, but all his other birthdays. As he gets older, he's frozen in time. This little boy's frozen in time. He's never going to have any more earthly birthdays, you know? So he's never going to enjoy his cake. He's never going to blow his candles out. He's never going to open his presents. Sad. Anyway, but there has been a vigil organised for him. I think I've got it here. So this vigil is going to be held tomorrow in Preston. And funnily enough, for Preston, so this is Preston in the Preston Flag Market. And we are going to be covering it, or, you know, I think apparently. But we'll be doing our own little vigil for him, lighting a candle. It's adorable, just adorable little face. How could you hurt this little one? What sort of a psychopath? What sort of a person have you got to be for USC? Either sex-wise or just being cruel and trying to make him cry. Why would you do that? What sort of person are you? Look at his lovely curly hair, which wasn't wet, by the way, when he went to hospital. So a candlelit vigil in memory of tragic baby Preston Davey will take place in Preston. It says next month, but it's tomorrow. So it will take place on Flag Market at 8 p.m. That's 9 p.m. Spanish time. I thought maybe it was 9 p.m. I'm not sure. But anyway, we'll check it out. Tuesday, June the 16th, what would have been Preston's 4th birthday. And this is being organised by this mum, Naomi Clark. Now, I don't know if she knows Preston's real mum or if she's just a biological mum or if she's just organising it because, you know, she feels for Preston, or whether she is known to the family. I don't know. Anyway, she said the remembrance for Preston Davey will be going ahead on Preston's Flag Market on June the 16th. Please bring candles, bubbles, teddies. And let's just remember that sweet boy on what would have been his 4th birthday. Let's take some of the attention off these two and remember a beautiful little boy who was let down by the system from the start. So we're going to be covering that. Now I think I've got her Facebook page up here. The Naomi, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Maybe I'm not, I don't know. Whether she is a friend of the families for Preston. So this is what she's put on her Facebook page. Let me just make sure it's sharing. Yeah. Hi, Joan. Sorry, Joanne. Hi, Joanne. Right, let's see. So, remembering Preston Davey. Join us for a peaceful candlelit vigil to remember a sweet baby boy who would have been turning 4 years old. What does that say? Sorry, I can't see that. Location, Preston Flag Market. And time, is that 8 p.m? It's not very good. The text doesn't show up very well, sadly, but I think that's 8 p.m. So 8 p.m. UK time, which would here in Spain will be 9 p.m. So I'll be covering it at 9 p.m. Spanish time, but 8 p.m. UK time. I will put a notification out tomorrow morning. So apparently, not contacted by people all over the world, which is good. Here's a little video she made. So she met Dave Sharp, who's the guy I follow on X, who's had a lot to say about this case. I've been sharing his posts. He's a survivor of the care system. So let's see. Let's see what she says here.
We're just waiting, we're hanging about, seeing if we can try and get the verdict on the Preston Davey case. But as I did my status the other day about meeting up with Dave Sharp. So this is Dave. So introduce yourself, Dave.
Hi guys, I'm Dave Sharp. I'm a and the people of Preston.
Yeah, so what he does is really me over the past 24 hours since I've met him. Really inspiring. He's come back from a lot of bad stuff, like myself. We just want to make a difference now. He's really given me a bit more passion than what I had previously. But I'm looking to working with him as well in future and helping him with more campaigning and stuff as well.
We're coming down on Tuesday from Scotland. We're a charity-based charity. We have my charity, a campaign group rather, called SAFE, Seek and Find Everyone Abused in Childhood. We're bringing another account movement, and we've all been touched, really touched by this, really touched by what Niamh said. We heard her on Facebook or on social media, and straight away we thought this is a lady we need to come and support. So we've also made contact with some of our friends in London. We're going to set up some stalls. We're going to hold a minute silence. We've done these vigils many places, but we're asking the people of Preston to come out and join us. This young baby didn't have a life. This young baby was put straight into the care system, and unfortunately this baby a proper send-off this baby's going to set up a birthday stall so that we can give this baby a proper birthday and a proper send-off. As I say, we'll have a minute's silence to remember the life of Preston Davey and all those children whose lives were taken or lost because of child abuse. And we're very proud to stand beside the people of Preston, and we're hoping you'll all come out and join us. It's a very hard subject to talk about, but we need to face this together, guys. Too many times our own children are being ignored and pushed through the adoption system and into the care system. Face this as a nation. We have to face this as a community, and that's what we're going to do Tuesday night at the Flag Market, Preston. Please come and join us. God bless.
So yeah, hopefully see as many of you there on Tuesday, guys. Just outside court now, guys. We're just waiting.
Yeah.
Hanging about.
Dave.
Yeah. So a lot of things that Dave said, they're so true. Nobody wants to talk about it. It's not been on the mainstream media that much. I've been talking about it, but YouTube hates it. You know, YouTube sort of restricts the ads on every single video I ever do about Preston. And you know what matters about that is that when YouTube restrict the ads, it means they don't push it out into the algorithm. So people don't get to hear Preston's story. That's why I'm always asking people to share, because you can't rely on YouTube to share it because it's an unpalatable subject, and it is an unpalatable subject. It hurts the soul to talk about. No, you don't want to think about what's happened to this little boy, but if nobody talks about it, how's it ever going to get any better if people keep trying to brush things like this under the carpet? You know, were these men allowed to adopt Preston because of fitting political correctness quotas? It's a perfectly reasonable question to ask. Doesn't mean you're homophobic. I'm the least homophobic person you could ever meet. But, you know, you can't avoid talking about these things just in case you get accused of being homophobic. You know, I've said many times in every video, this is not about, even the judge said it in his summing up, this is not, these men are not bad because they're gay. They're bad. So they could be, you know, there are bad people, some, you know, I don't know, heterosexual couples that have children are bad. Like Arthur that I was talking about earlier, his parents, his dad and his stepmom who killed him through neglect, they were white and they were, you know, a heterosexual couple. Being a twunk, being cruel is not exclusive, you know, or to anyone. You know what I mean? So it's not, you know, they're not bad because they're gay. They're bad because they're bad. They're just bad. Some people are just bad, whatever their colour, whatever their religion, whatever their sexuality, you know. So, but this is sort of worrying me a little bit because I'm thinking, did they get Preston? Because you talk about two men who self-admittedly know nothing about babies. So why were they given a baby? You know, why? Why were they given a baby? If they self-admittedly know bugger all about babies, about looking after a baby. You know, if they'd been married before, had children before or whatever, and they had experience with babies. But they didn't. So why were they allowed to have Preston? Was it to fill some sort of politically correct quotas or whatever? Did it look good to Oldham? I think it was Oldham Social Services in Manchester. You know, did it look good for them to give a baby to a gay couple? You know, as far as whether somebody gets given a baby to adopt should not depend on anything. It shouldn't depend on anything except how are they, what do they know about looking after a baby, and what is their history looking after babies? And if they haven't got any, they just shouldn't happen. So the other thing that I've learned is there's like a website, isn't there? They go on a website and they're these children that are up for adoption. It's like bloody Plenty of Fish or something. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know what the alternative is. If a baby comes up, for whatever reason they decided that Preston could not go to his biological parents, for whatever reason, they removed Preston from the family environment, from his biological mum's environment. We don't know why. Maybe they had a good reason. I don't know. But then, why do that and then just give him to someone who's got no experience with babies? Is it because they look the part because they dress nice and had good jobs and they seem like this? We all know you can't believe anything you see on social media. So, if their social media profiles, I mean, to me, I think you'd only have to be in Jamie Varley's company for half an hour and you would know he's a drama queen. You don't give a baby to a drama queen. Not when you've got, I mean, listen, anyone can have a baby, and if they happen to be a drama queen, which is not much you can do about people's biological kids, unless you're Oldham Town Hall, and then they take them off the biological mother and give Preston to somebody so much worse because they looked on the surface. But only a little bit of digging really about this man, Jamie in particular, and their relationship as well, which seems to be based on histrionics and, Jamie getting jealous of John. But Jamie chose. The thing about Jamie is he chose to take a year off to look after Preston. This is not something that was forced on him. They chose to have Preston. It was a choice. And Jamie chose to have a year off and be the home giver, the caregiver, the at-home parent. That was his choice. Why did he do that? And if he did it and then it turned, maybe you'd do it and you think it'd be all fine, but then, you can see that Jamie is like a social person. He likes attention all the time. So he wouldn't have liked being at home with the baby and not getting any attention. So I think a lot of the videos and photos he sent to John GF were to get attention, weren't they? You come home here now because otherwise I can't have a shower. Well, he had a shower a couple of times when Preston, not caring what Preston was doing. But on his messages to John GF, he was getting like really shirty. Oh, you better get home, so otherwise I can't have a shower and blah. It's your turn to look after the baby, blah, blah, blah. I think there was more going on in this relationship. I think John may have been having an affair even, or, because Jamie seemed so very jealous and controlling of him. Did he think he was up to something with someone? Why was he so, why take on a baby and then get annoyed that you've got to look after it? But it's your choice. You didn't have a baby thrust at you. You went through the process. You went through the difficult process of adoption. And then you didn't like it. And then he was getting depressed. He was telling his friends he was having dark thoughts about drowning Preston. The language that he used, he'd send messages to John GF and say, I've just strangled your son, or, just the red flags. So many red flags. Where's my red flag button? Where's my red flag button? Red button. So you couldn't have any more red. Yes. So just going back now to what I was on there, her Facebook. I pronounced it wrong before, so it's Neve, a name. So as I said, I don't know.
Yes. But as I did my status the other day about meeting up with Davey.
I don't know if Neve knows Preston's biological mum or whether she is just a mum who wanted to do this vigil. I think Preston's biological mum will be keeping a low profile. Thank you, Louise, for the red flags. I was looking for mine and I couldn't find them. Yeah, I think as soon as the verdicts are in this case, we will definitely find out more about the sort of background behind it. You know, the background behind it, why Preston was taken off his mum, taken off his family, so sort of quickly, you know, immediately, practically after he was born. Oh, here's there's a little candle there. The tribute to Preston Davey will take place on the 16th. What would have been Preston's 4th birthday. Okay, now still no verdict. Is that a good sign, a bad sign? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if it's a good sign or a bad sign, to be honest. But personally, I think it's a good sign. Yeah, I'm hoping it's a good. I'm going to just ask AI. Is it better if you know, if for so yeah, Dave Sharp, he has met Preston's mum. All Preston's family is sitting outside waiting for the decision. It's a lot of waiting, isn't it? A lot of waiting. Do you know, if you were Preston's mum, do you imagine? You would want to, you could, you know, you literally would want to hurt those men to what happened to your son, you know, because she didn't give him up. So I think one thing we do know for certain, even though we don't know the full story about Preston's mum, I think one thing that we do know is she did not want to give him up. He was taken away from her and put up for adoption, and sadly for Preston, he ended up being given to these men. So, you know, how would you feel? God, you'd be trying to get in there and get your hands on them, wouldn't you? You know, I would. I know I would. You know, I'm not ashamed of saying, you know, that was your baby that had ended up that happening to them when they're supposed to be in the care system. And that's what had happened to them. And you'd heard of all these horrible videos and the way Preston was treated. Oh my God, you'd really want to do them some damage. I'm sorry. I think that's just the truth of how you would feel if it was your child. Now, I don't know where they are waiting for the verdict. Are they there at the courtroom? Or are they in a detention centre somewhere? Or are they actually there at the courtroom? So imagine when the verdict finally comes through, what will happen is, you know, we will get a notification and then the jury will be reassembled, the public will come in and go through the verdict. So I'm I'm probably going to go off in a minute for a little while, but I'll stay on a little bit longer yet. Because the thing is that once it gets to lunchtime, they'll be going for lunch there. So we're not going to get a verdict then till after lunch, shall we? If we get one today, or it may be, I think it would be fitting in a way if we get the verdict tomorrow for Preston's birthday, but only if it's the right verdict, of course. I'm just going to Google what AI thinks about long jury deliberations. Now, I'm thinking of a couple of cases I've covered lately. There was the Delphi case that seemed to go on for a while, and everyone was starting to think he would be found not guilty, Richard Allen. Some people still think he should have been found not guilty. I'm not one of them. I think he is guilty. But he was found guilty. And of course, Erin Patterson the same. So let's see, how can I phrase this for AI so they give me an answer? So what I'm Googling is it a good sign for a guilty verdict the longer a jury deliberates? Let's see what they have to say about it. Statistics somewhere. Lengthy jury deliberation, nor do they guarantee an acquittal. Legal experts and YouTube discussions note that time spent deliberating typically reflects case complexity, and that's what I've been saying. This is a complex case. There's a lot to discuss. 2 defendants, multiple charges. So it typically reflects the case complexity, the volume of evidence, and the jury's internal process rather than the final outcome. Online legal forums reveal diverse perspectives on what long deliberations mean for a trial. And it says, on platforms like Reddit, some users and attorneys argue that longer deliberations indicate at least one holdout juror, which historically favours the defence. However, others argue that a delayed conviction simply means a jury systematically dismantled the defence's theories piece by piece. Mixed opinions. Discussions on Facebook and Quora highlight that there is no consensus on whether extended deliberations systematically favour either side. Lengthy debates can ultimately end in an acquittal, a conviction, or a hung jury. Oh, well, that's helpful, isn't it? So in other words, we have no idea. Yeah, so Jacqueline is concerned it's taking so long. I personally think it's good it's taking like that. That's just, maybe I'm just trying to think that way. I don't know. I think they've got a lot of conviction. I think they're probably assessing each different conviction separately for the 2 men, and it takes time. And at the end of the day as well, it's an important case. So it's not shoplifting, is it? It's not a petty crime. And it wouldn't, you might not think, oh, well, it's not that important because it's only, I don't know, shoplifting, an offence or, something petty. So this is serious. This is murder, sex abuse. You couldn't get any more serious, really, could you, than the charges that have been held against these men. So it is important that the jury are sure. There's a lot of evidence to go through. Maybe they'll want things clarifying. We don't know what sort of questions they're asking to the maybe they're sending back some questions to the judge, saying, what about this or what about that? We don't know because, we're not in on that, are we? What else does it say? So it's, gosh, very handy AI sometimes. It says, if you are currently following a specific trial, please tell me how many charges the defendant is facing, approximately how many days the trial lasted. Now, this trial has gone on for maybe 6 weeks. So there's a lot, isn't there? What specific evidence the jury is reviewing. And then I can give you a better idea of what might be happening behind closed doors. So I wonder if I can ask that. So how many charges? So there's a lot of charges, isn't there? Wasn't there? How many charges in total? So Varley is accused of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or 6 charges for Varley, and 1, 2, 3 charges for GF. So it has to go through each one individually, don't you think? Is that why it's taking so long? I'm personally of the thought now that if these were going to be not guilty verdicts, would have come out by now. I don't think it can possibly be not guilty because the jury have seen the videos that we've only heard about. They've actually seen them, had to sit through, and my heart goes out to them because that would be so distressing. Seeing the video of Preston struggling for breath, lying on the bed that day, or seeing the video of Preston left in the bath for 14 minutes, crying, whimpering, scared, and Varley just videoing him. Watching the video of him pooing in the bath and Varley holding him up for the camera. Seeing the video of him spinning in the cups, visibly distressed. All the times that jury have had to sit through videos of this baby being distressed. Be awful for them. They need a bloody counselling session after this. And the judge, anyone watched it, I can't see that it can be not guilty. I think the problem is going to be, maybe there is one who's holding out, one juror, and eventually will the judge say, I'll accept, 10-2 verdict or something. Sometimes they do that though, whether they'll do that in a case as serious as this. You couldn't get any more serious than PDF and murder. What could be more serious? Couldn't get more serious case than this, could you? And the other thing that I mentioned in the last video that I did, I don't know if any of you saw it towards the end of last week. There was a lot of attention on the news about Snapchat and about how it's being used to, by PDFs to sort of ensnare victims. It's being used by predators. And who was on Snapchat every 5 minutes? Jamie Varley. He was all over Snapchat. You know, a 35-year-old man who's on Snapchat. To me, Snapchat's always something you associate with younger people. Why was he all over Snapchat I know he was an immature twat. It just when I saw that news come out, they were trying to, that Snapchat, that it was thought that Snapchat is being used by PDFs. I thought straight away of Varley. You know, I thought, Snapchat. Do any of you, I mean, my demographic, if you like, for my viewers is probably from 25 years up. Do you use Snapchat? Somebody tell me, do you use Snapchat? Do older people, and when I say older, I mean even 30, do they use Snapchat? I don't think my son, he used to use it, but I don't think he uses it now, as if it's sort of passed him by now. Something that you use when you're older, but if anybody uses it, maybe I'm wrong. But according to this news, it was by predators to find children. That is a big way that they find. Because like you say, Sean, you know, if you're looking for children, you know, if you're looking for children to prey upon, what do? So you go on Snapchat, or you go on other younger, you know, you go on video games for young children, don't you? That's where you go to find your victims. You know, there's no point on going on adults' websites, you know, that adults use to find victims. You have to go on the websites, apps, etc., that children use. And this is sadly, you know, you go into jobs that bring you into contact with children, like Jamie Varley. There he was, a teacher at a high school, head of year. You know, if you're a predator, you look for employment, anything that will bring you closer to children, give you access to children. And you know what? It's very sad, because then you've got genuinely teachers, you know, that aren't PDFs, and they sort of get looked at twice, because men especially, I think, you know, you do get this sort of, right, you know, if there's a man working in a nursery, or you know, working with young children, there is that sort of, oh, you know, that's not a man's job. You know, these, you know, I'm just telling the truth how people feel, you know, and it's because of people like Varley. When, you know, when things happen and PDFs are caught out and they're in these kind of jobs, you know, that's sadly, then people start looking at anyone who's in that sort of job and thinking, oh, why are they in that job, you know? Sad, isn't it, really? Because there will be loads of teachers out there who are not PDFs, of course, and some female teachers, or female, you know, it's not all men that are PDFs either, sadly. How do we stop this happening, you know? Because someone who is a PDF, they're clever at finding their victims, aren't they? You know, sometimes they'll get together with a single parent, won't they? Someone who's got children, and they'll get together with them, so it puts them in a position where they've got access to their children. And sometimes people aren't sensible enough not to let people into their lives, but, you know, they're groomers. When PDFs groom not only the children, but also the parents of the children. You know, they inveigle themselves, don't they? They're clever. They're clever because they've probably spent their whole life trying to pull the wool over people's eyes, come over as being, you know, really sensible. You know, really sensible, really reliable. You can trust me with your child. This is why I think with Jamie Varley, if this is proven true, I don't think he's just started doing this in his mid-30s. I think there's going to be more to it. It's going to be more. I'm saying with John GF, he's 30. Noisy motorbike going past. Yeah, he's 30. He was only 28, I suppose, when it was all going on, which is quite young, isn't it? Really, still quite young. Val is he 5 years older than him, or maybe even more? How did they meet, I wonder? Did they meet on a website? Yeah, sure. So these type of people, men, they're mainly men, but they're not only men. Women, sadly, are PDFs as well. But yeah, that's what they do. They join the Scouts, the church, just to be able to go and work at Disney or something, or go and become a caretaker at a school. If they can't be a teacher, they'll be a caretaker like Ian Huntley. They love it, anywhere that brings them into contact with children, one way or another. It's terrible, really, isn't it? It's very sad. Very sad. And then, but what we've got to be careful, you can't look sideways at everybody, can you? You sort of, then you end up, thinking, are you a PDF? Like, there's no way of knowing, because do you know what? And the worst ones are so clever. They're the people you would never think. They're the respectable people, or that's how it appears on the surface. PDFs, they're not, the loner who lives at the end of the street who you think looks a bit weird or whatever. And, they're not. They're respectable people. And yeah, as you say, Sean, it's sad for the good guys that get tarred with the same brush. There's a lot of jobs, aren't there, that, people have stereotypical images of, if somebody does a certain job, what sort of person they are. A lot of the time, I think it has changed, because you know what, like years ago, if you were a doctor, you wouldn't get challenged about anything, would you? Doctors were gods, police were gods, any professional person. I do think now we do question, but it's sad really that we have to, isn't it? You should be able to trust a doctor. It's like that expression, isn't it? Trust me, I'm a doctor. Look at Harold Shipman. You can't trust a doctor always. You've always, oh God, what's the answer? Well, be like me, just never go to the doctor, even when I should do, really. I do feel uncomfortable around doctors, or male doctors. It's just can't help it. I don't know how to explain it. Yeah, Louise, perpetrators appear normal. I'm sorry to hear that, and it's true though, isn't it? It's so true. Because I'll tell you what, if they didn't appear normal, they wouldn't get away with it, would they? They were, it's like serial killers and things like that. They don't get people into their car. Nobody is going to get into the car of someone who looks like Charles Manson. They're not going to, are they? They get into the car with someone, or they let someone buy them a drink or whatever, because these people, they're handsome and charming, and, they feel safe with them. And then, of course, it turns out that the last thing they are is safe. And PDFs are exactly the same. They inveigle themselves with the family. They groom the families, the parents, as well as the children. It's very sad, isn't it? Very sad. But then you think, what's the answer then? How do we, how do we tell? I think, Elon Musk, I've said this before, instead of sending up all these rockets in space that end up crashing back down and polluting the seas and polluting the atmosphere, maybe you could do better working on something where you could actually read someone's mind and tell if they're telling the truth or not. You know, lie detectors maybe could be improved, hey? You know, because you can only go, otherwise you're just working on your gut instinct all the time. But sometimes your gut instinct works, and you know, I'm sure you've all done the same. You meet someone and on the surface seem really nice and this, that and the other, and there's just something that you don't like in the police department, they call it a hunch, don't they? They get hunches about people, but it's like an intuition, isn't it? And you know, I think I feel that really strong, and then other times I think feel a bit guilty because I think, oh, why don't I like that person? They've never done anything to me. They've never done anything to me. They've never said anything to me, but I don't like them. And they say something, I think you're lying. I don't even know why. And then, you know, you can't take that to a court of law, can you? You can't, you know. But we've got nothing else to work with. So, yeah, if Elon Musk would get going on a bloody proper lie detector or a mind reading thing, you know, just you need, I don't know, because even if you have a good sense, even if it's happened to you and you feel like you can spot a perpetrator a mile off, it's still not something you can take someone to court about, is it? You can't take someone to court and say, you know, so, well, how do you know they abused that child? Or I just have a feeling, or they just look like an abuser. Sometimes it's true, but it's not going to stand up in a court of law, is it? You need evidence. So, you know, that's where we are with this case. Anyway, it's not coming through. I think I have a feeling it isn't going to come through today. I think it'll come through tomorrow, but I think I've got to go and have lunch. But I will be back. I tell you, the minute anything turns up on here, just checking one more time. There's nothing on Twitter. No. All just waiting. All just waiting. So I'm going to go and have a sandwich. But if anything comes through about the verdict, any news, I will be back. I will definitely be back. I just want to say thank you again to the ones of you. Well, I want to thank all of you for being here and caring about Preston and what happens to him. A special thank you to Julie and Lily, I think it was. Yeah, thank you so much for the super stickers, etc. But thank you especially to everyone for caring about this beautiful baby, and we're just praying for the right verdict. I don't care in a way if the verdict comes through today or tomorrow. There's a part of me that thinks it would be poetic justice for the verdict to come through tomorrow on little Preston's birthday and on the day of the vigil, and that be nice in one way, but of course it's another day of torture for the family to wait, which is a shame. But anyway, so yeah, I'll be back as soon as I hear anything. Please pray for the right verdict, pray for Preston, pray for his family. And the minute I just keep thinking, as soon as I go off here, the verdict's going to come through probably. Well, I hope it does, because I'll be straight back. I'm not going anywhere. I'm just going to go and get a sandwich. So I will see you very soon in the next video. And until then, as always, may your God go with you. And I hope, I'm praying for strength for Preston's family, because it's sort of torture for us waiting for the verdict. Imagine how it is for them. So thank you so much. May your God go with you. Bye.